All right. Good morning, everybody. It's been a while since I've made a Royals video on the way to work, so I thought I'd do that today. So, one of the things that has happened in this first 3 weeks of the baseball season has been an abundance of cold weather across the country. We've had snowouts, lots of precipitation for rain as well. The Royals game yesterday was postponed because of cold. It was only a high of like 25 yesterday here in Kansas City, and right now it's on Monday morning it's 33 on April 16th today. So it is definitely a cold start to the baseball season, but that's not an excuse for any professional baseball team. They still have to go out there and play. So the Kansas City Royals sit at 3-10, 13 games. They have only won 3 times. They have failed to win a baseball game when the other team scores a run. So think about that. Their 3 wins have come by shutout. They have 2 1-0 victories, and they have a 10-0 victory. Other than that, they are winless when the other team scores at least 1 run, which is pretty pathetic. Some of the talks some of my other videos about the moves they made in the offseason, like acquiring Jon Jay, acquiring Lucas Duda, re-signing Moustakas, re-signing Escobar. So the consensus that I had was I was indifferent to the Lucas Duda signing. I didn't really like it a whole lot, but I didn't really hate it either. It was just kind of bleh, whatever. I really liked the Jon Jay sign. I thought that was a good pickup by the Royals just because of his on-base ability. I didn't care for Escobar's re-signing, but it was so cheap and it's a 1-year deal. I have to go back to the mantra that there's no such thing as a bad 1-year contract. And I actually liked the re-signing of Moustakas because I do not like Cheslor Cuthbert as a long-term solution at third base. Now, I never made a video about the bullpen because I didn't really know what to say about the bullpen. I didn't know who was going to be there other than Herrera and Mauer. And in the back of my mind, I thought actually those two would be the steadying force. And Herrera's only pitched in, I think, 4 games. I think he has 5 innings pitched. He's got a couple saves. But he's just had no opportunities to pitch. The really bad thing, Brandon Mauer has been absolutely atrocious. He's been really, historically bad. So bad, they've already sent him down to AAA. And they've had some nice guys like Keller and Hill, the 2 Rule 5 kids. They've pitched really well in the first a couple weeks of the season. Small sample size, obviously. Graham has been bad. He's had some at bats that have looked really fantastic. His strikeout of Robinson Cano, in that it was a Wednesday day game, and the only reason I highlight this is because I was at that game. His strikeout of Robinson Cano happened on the 0-1 pitch, and it was just like 2 batters before he gave up a home run, but that was actually the game winner for the Mariners. But his strikeout of Cano gives me some hope, just because how badly he was fooled on the 0-1 pitch. And then as my buddy who was at the game with, I said, this at bat's over. He's going to strike him out this next pitch. He's completely fooled. He has no idea what's coming, and he threw another curveball, and Cano had no chance. So obviously there's some potential there. Blaine Boyer should be cut. Blaine Boyer has done some really nice things outside of baseball. I really praise his effort in battling human trafficking, which is a serious issue, and not only in our country but in the world today. So I give Blaine Boyer a lot of credit for shining the light on issues like that. But as a baseball player, Blaine Boyer needs to retire. It is what it is. He's a really he's a really bad pitcher now, and he's had some nice spots in his career, but his career probably is over. And the Royals need to move on. They just need to release him and go with somebody else. They did call up Kevin McCarthy and take the place of Brandon Maurer. I like McCarthy. I think he's a nice piece in the bullpen. Josh Staumont is probably going to get called up at some point. I can't see Blaine Boyer lasting too much longer, to be honest with you. I think Staumont is a person that they're going to call up, put in the bullpen. I don't think he's ever going to figure out as a starter long term. And then we come to the starting pitching, which has actually been somewhat decent, even for a 3-10 team. Jake Junis has been pretty solid. Obviously, he's had two fantastic starts, and he's had, in his last one, he gave up 4 runs, but into 5 1/3 innings, still struck out 7 batters. Doesn't have his best stuff, but it's not like he gave up 9 runs in 3 innings or anything like that. So Jake Junis obviously is a battler. He's a competitor. Ian Kennedy has been pretty solid for the most part, other than 1 inning in Detroit. Duffy has had some really bad first innings, but has battled out there. I give him a C- grade, honestly, barely passing. Eric Skoglund is Eric Skoglund. Whatever. And there's somebody else I'm forgetting. Oh, Jason Hamill. Jason Hamill's been hit or miss. He's had a couple of good starts. He's had a good start. He's had a bad start, and he's had a meh start. So the starting pitching deserves better. Than what the offense has done, and that's really what I want to focus on here. We know the bullpen's bad. We know the starting pitching is. They might be overachieving at this point, but at least they're trying to keep the Royals in games. The offense is historically bad. Really, really, really poor. Mike Moustakas is absolutely raking. Obviously, he is a great hitter at this point in his career. Set the Royals record for home runs last year, and he's on pace to. I think he's on pace to break the record again. I think he's on pace for over 40 home runs now. And he's getting on base, he's getting hits, he's getting home runs. He's the only guy. Whit Merrifield has had kind of a slower start. He's getting the upper 200s. He's right under 300, his batting average. He's not doing terrible, but he's not hitting for the power that he hit for last year, at least so far in the first 3 weeks of the season. Maybe that'll come. Maybe as the season warms up. I'm not really concerned about Whit Merrifield just because he gets a professional approach at bat. John Jay's getting on base at a 358 clip. Can't complain about that. John Jay was, as I called it, has been a good pickup. Lucas Duda has done exactly what I thought Lucas Duda would do: hit some home runs, drive some runs in, and strike out a bunch. And Lucas Duda that's who he is. I'm trying to think who else before I really start ripping into other. Jorge Soler has looked good at times. He's actually shown some patience, which is good. He's got a decent on-base percentage. His batting average is really, really low, but his last time I looked, his on-base was still over the 350 clip. So, at least he's getting on base. He's drawing some walks, which is good. But the Royals really need Jorge Soler to hit some home runs. They really need him to. Holy cow! This person almost ran into somebody. Anyway, Jorge Soler really needs to. Don't get me wrong. Drawing walks is a good thing. It's always good to get on base. But if you're in the 5-6 hole, you really need to be hitting the ball and driving in those guys in front of you. I know Ned Yost put him in the number 2 spot for one game and he went 0 for 3. And then he took him right back out of the 2 spot. I kind of like Jorge Soler batting the 2 spot if he can consistently get on base. So, more to come on that. The rest of the offense. Alcides Escobar is done. I will never forget the contributions that Escobar made to the Royals. I'm trying to get my phone just right here. I'll never forget the contributions that Escobar made to the Royals in the postseason in 14 and 15. Included an ALCS MVP, much deserved ALCS MVP. I might have been inclined to give it to Ben Zobrist over Escobar, but Escobar really set the table in that series and really had the Blue Jays just befuddled at the start of those games. So I would, if I'd had to vote, I would have rated Zobrist. I would have ranked him first and Escobar second in the MVP voting for the ALCS in 15. But that's how I would see it. But still, Escobar, he still deserved it. Anyway, we're not talking about that right now. What we're talking about is Escobar in 2018, which he's a bad baseball player. That's all you can say about him. He is a bad baseball player. And I believe Mondesi is still injured. But as soon as I've been on this channel and I have said that Raul Mondesi, or whatever his first name is now, Alberto, or I'm just going to call him Raul. Somebody's calling me. Yeah, I can't take the phone call right now. Sorry. Raul Mondesi, I've never been a big fan of, but he still is a prospect. He still has potential. Alcides Escobar is washed up. And Alcides Escobar needs to be done. The Royals need to realize the mistake they made in re-signing him. And I even said that Escobar's signing wasn't that big of a deal. Well, it is a big deal because he's a bad baseball player. And the Royals need to move on for him. Obviously, catching Drew Butera is a nice backup, but Butera has been starting because Salvador Perez got hurt, carrying luggage up the stairs. Whatever. I mean, this is obviously anytime you lose a guy like Salvador Perez, you're gonna struggle. And I think this is probably one of the reasons why the bullpen has struggled. Butera has always called a poor game and has always been a very poor catcher behind the plate from a pitching standpoint, and that might be one of the reasons why the bullpen has been just so atrocious. Perez is not like that. He's been a lot better. It seems like pitchers pitch better for him than they do Butera. So when it comes to, then we look at the outfield. Like I said, Soler, okay, whatever. Alex Gordon, Paulo Orlando, no. Alex Gordon obviously has a place in Royals history. Probably the most important home run in Royals history he hit. And that was kind of sound like Yoda there, what did? The thing with Alex Gordon is he's done, and this last round of an injury that happened to Alex Gordon, and when they said that he tore his labrum or tore it even worse, it was already torn, and then Ned Yost made a really interesting comment, and he said that this labrum has been torn for 2 years, and if you can't see my eyebrows here, they're kind of furrowing, but because I have sunglasses on. I find this really curious because Gordon has been bad for 2 years. Now, is it this torn labrum that he's had for 2 years? And you can hear the skepticism in my voice. Is this what's caused him to be a bad baseball player for 2 years? Is this what's caused him to lose all of his power? I honestly believe this was the Royals' attempt to try to one more time to fix him. Another thing that I don't understand about this, if the Royals say that he's been hurt for 2 years and now he's even injured this even worse, and somebody just about ran into me. It's like I'm invisible or something on the road. If the Royals really believe that it was going to take 2 weeks to fix a torn labrum when it's been affecting him for 2 years, and he's never had, and something like that. There's been other players. I'm trying to think of the Royals player that had that issue, that he was out for a long time, and they'd say that the level of the injury that he has is actually something that would require, most people would require surgery, but he can suddenly doesn't need surgery and can come back in 2 weeks, which was last week, is what they said this. I don't buy this. I think this is complete hogwash. This is just nothing but PR spin by the Royals marketing, or not marketing department, but by the Royals public relations department. This is nonsense. Whether Alex Gordon is really hurt or not, it's obvious to everybody that he is no longer the player that he was. I said at the end of the 2015 season, when he came back and they signed the contract, I was urging, not like I had anything to say or do with it, or like he was listening to my opinion, but I posted on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, and I said, Alex Gordon needs to realize the potential legacy that he could leave here in Kansas City if he comes back. He has the potential to become the second greatest Royals player, or the second greatest player in Royals history, behind George Brett. I don't think that's the case any longer. I think he's still up there in discussion with, definitely in the top 10, maybe top 5, definitely top 10 of all time. Don't get me wrong. He's been a great player for his career, and I'm not going to just forget about what he's done in his career just because his last 2 seasons have been bad. But Alex Gordon is, it's painful to watch how poorly he's playing, and I'm now of the belief that contract was not good. And I'm going back on it because I thought it was good at the time. I fully agreed with it. I supported it as a fan. And you say, well, then you have to support it now. Well, I was wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong to want that. And I guess I was letting the emotions of the World Series victory cloud my judgment. I will always have those memories. We'll always have the parade. I was there. Me and my 800,000 friends. You can't take those memories away. But I think it's time to take Alex Gordon away. Obviously, the Royals are going to be paying him for the next couple seasons. At least this season and next. And then, obviously, he'll be done. So what do you do with him? What do you do with Gordon? When he comes back, when he's quote-unquote healthy, what do you do with him? You just run him out there and let his 212 average and 285 on base that's a black hole in the lineup. That's like having another Alcides Escobar out there. Granted, Gordon won a Gold Glove last year, and he deserved it. And it finally proved that Gold Gloves actually are about defense, because at one point in time, I'm in a parking garage now, I better take those off. At one point in time, Gold Gloves were about, well, who's the best offensive player at this position that also has a reputation for defense? Kind of like Rafael Palmeiro in 1999, when he played 17 games at first base and won a Gold Glove. And that was an absolute joke. Anyway, that's besides the point. The time for the Royals, it's time for the Royals to admit their mistakes. That a lot of the moves they made this offseason were poor. They're 3-10. They're not going to get any better. Matter of fact, what's the difference between winning 64 games and winning 70 games? There's no difference in that. Now, Dayton Moore will tell you that every win is important. And that's one of the things that I mentioned in the earlier video is how Dayton Moore values every single win. And that he really believes that every win has value to teach a player and a team how to win. But if those wins, if those 6 extra wins all come from these veteran players who are not going to be here in a year or two regardless, what does that teach anybody? Because the players that you want to win with in long term are still in Omaha or possibly on other teams. So I'm getting parked here. So I don't really think that the Royals, I think the Royals are approaching this completely wrong. What they really need to do, they need to bite the bullet. They need to trade these guys on these one-year contracts for whatever they can. They need to trade Jon Jay. They need to trade Mike Moustakas. They need to trade Lucas Duda. No one's going to take Alcides Escobar, so might as well cut him. And honestly, the money's already spent on Alex Gordon. You're not getting anything from him. He is a negative player now. I think it's time for him to go. And I think it's time for the Royals just to see what they have in some of these other players. If they can get some guys in a trade and play with them, that's fine. If not, then they need to move on. And that's going to be that's a hard thing to do. So, especially some of these guys, they have an emotional investment in, like Gordon and Moustakas and Escobar. And Moustakas, he could be traded right now. Someone would give probably some decent money. They'd probably get some decent prospects for him. Royals need to trade him. They need to be done with it. Like I said, I don't want to see Cuthbert at third base, but you know what? I'd rather see this farm system rebuilt than watch the Royals win 70 games with guys in their low to mid 30s. It doesn't make any sense. At least not anymore. So, again, only 13 games in the season. Maybe I'm overreacting, but obviously we've seen enough out of Gordon Escobar to know, and Paulo Orlando for that matter. I mean, I don't know what the Royals are running him out there for. The Royals just need to move on. And I'm sure they won't do anything until June at the earliest. But by then it's gonna be way too late. So they need to get guys up here like Dozier and Ryan O'Hearn and Mondesi and just let them play. Just let these guys play. It's like the Bad News Bears. Let them play. Anyway, well, thanks for watching this video. Got to get inside to work. We'll talk to you later.